Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Thanks for joining me today on another live edition of Node Investor. We're going to be looking at some charts. We're going to be talking crypto markets, seeing where everyone is at. Thanks for being here. I know you guys have a lot of questions about alts, about Bitcoin, where are things going, what are we doing? So I have a list of names that I'm going to be going through here, and then I will absolutely take some names from you guys if you want to ask for some more. My plan here, as usual, for these live streams, I'm going to try to keep it time limited. So we'll be doing maybe an hour in and around that, maybe less if we run through the names quickly here. And so that's the plan. But thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for joining. It's been an interesting couple of days here. My last video that I posted was, I believe, on Saturday, and I was talking about the potential for some reversal patterns forming. You can see on my chart here, this was the trend line that I was watching. We had a pretty decent breakout above that yesterday, but as been the case here for a lot of this recent period, is we get the big pop to the upside and then things kind of just go flat, and we're still all waiting to see some additional follow through. So I will definitely go into the charts. I'll look at short term, I'll look at some long term, and kind of give you guys my take. I have been doing some trading. I mean, I started taking some positions over the weekend, and then yesterday on some of the move. Am taking a little bit of profits here today, because that's just the nature of the game right now. Is, you put your targets in place. If they hit, go ahead and scale out or tighten the stops, and if they don't, then you watch the price action and you watch for that and look for those reversals. But I know not everybody trades. Not everybody does the active day-to-day. There's a lot of kind of just swing trader, intermediate holders, long-term holders. And so I'll definitely take a look at the broader charts, the broader pictures, and figure out where we at, what are the levels to be watching. So real quick, some interesting news items on CNBC. They were talking about Bitcoin volatility has plummeted, could be signaling a bottom. But, there was a video here which has some technical analysis. The key thing here, though, is volatility has plummeted. So have trading volumes, and a lot of the interest that has come with the market has dropped. And that's just expected with the bearish market that we've been in, right? I mean, when things are hot and things are going up, everybody wants in and people want to buy and buy and buy. But when things are pulling in and we're not buying Lambos every 2 weeks, then nobody wants in. So it's just kind of a natural. We've seen this with the Google search trends. There's been a drop in that, but not necessarily a leading indicator. I think it's just more of an accurate sentiment reading. Another interesting thing, John McAfee is no longer going to be shilling ICOs. We'll see how long that lasts. But dude, no longer ICOs, nor am I recommending them or doing ICOs. Sorry about the ads there, but you guys get the gist. And lastly, the hash rate for BTC has increased. There's been talk about Bitmain coming out with a new miner next year, but it's interesting to see that this hash rate has just really gone up quite a bit over the course of 2018, in spite of the price action drops. And we know that there is a minimum price that miners must maintain to be profitable. At some point, they'll start shutting off the miners if Bitcoin begins to drop below a certain price point. So just an interesting point there. And let me see here. What else? That's it. You guys know I try to keep this page, this channel, commercial free, but I do have some courses. I have an insider group. I've got some other things in the work that you guys are going to really be excited about, but go check that out. Nodeinvestor.com is where you can get more information onto that side of things. All right, so looking at this here, this is a little chart I've been maintaining here for the last couple of months now, and it's just a quick overview of where Bitcoin has been in 2018. And this was as of yesterday. We were down 53%. June's down 10% as of today. 10 green days, 8 red days. And if trading has been tough, especially in the last 6 to 8 weeks, that's because it has been tough and the market's been rough. There haven't really been a whole lot of opportunities to the long side if you're going short That's been the primary trade. You bounce into these moving averages, resistance, you take short positions there. But especially in the last week and a half or so, it's just been choppy. It's been sideways action, choppy. And you can see here, and we'll look at the charts, but the last several days before the pop yesterday was like the smallest room and volatility I'd seen in a while, and volume was low. And it's just goes to show you that not every day, not every week is a good trading week. And for the folks that are actively trading, you got to be cognizant of that. And that goes true for any markets, not just crypto. I mean, traditional markets, there's kind of a rule of thumb that maybe 30% of the time the markets will be trending. The rest of the time it's transition, it's consolidation, it's continuation, it's a lot of that. So if you get 30 to 40% of the time where you're actively making some quick trades and making the profits, that's actually pretty good. And the rest of the time, you're looking for those opportunities, you're taking shots, but you have to keep in mind that not every day, and certainly not even every week, is going to be a big profitable trading week. And so that's just kind of been the nature of the game. And you can see here throughout the year, we had January, which was the massive dump, ending on February 6th. We had about 100% rally, and then a period of consolidation, another little bit rally, and then March was the dump. Then we had 2 weeks of sideways. April was a nice rally. May and June still going sideways here, so we'll see where we're going from there. But that's kind of where we are. 2018 has not been the year of the hodl, and has certainly been a good year for trading. But even in the last, like I said, 6 weeks, even trading is getting tough now. So let's take a look at Bitcoin here. So a couple of things that I've been watching on Bitcoin. Let me clear this out here for you guys. I did put this trend line already on the chart here, and this was the potential trend line downward sloping near term that I was watching over the weekend. RSI bullish divergence remained in place as this continued to drop, and so I was keeping an eye on that. It's never a buy signal in and of itself, but you always have to keep an eye on that because it starts to signal that, hey, maybe near term the sellers are getting a little exhausted. Maybe we're going to see a little bit of a relief rally. This is the 4-hour chart. If you go to the daily chart, here over the weekend, you can see the 10 EMA was up here. We were already back below it, and we were, even a bounce into that would have been a pretty decent percent move. And so just that lining up with some of the seller exhaustion, some of the sentiment readings that were out there, right? And I'm not saying this is the low by any means, but we were due for a bounce. I mean, let's just put it that way. We were due for a little bit of a counter trend rally, and we had been seeing it, right? We had been seeing the long selling kind of coming to a little bit of a pause here, this sideways consolidation. And so yesterday I was watching this getting real tight. I posted in my group that this doesn't last, and so a break was imminent, and I thought by today would happen, and it literally happened like an hour or two after I posted this, and we had the big pop. I already had some open positions going into that. However, over the weekend I opened up some positions on NEO, some ETH. ETH has been outperforming, and so it's been the stronger name. I've been playing Ethereum as kind of my proxy for Bitcoin and looking for some outperformance there, and so far it's been holding up. So what happens next, right? That's what everybody wants to know. Is we had this breakout, we had a pretty good move yesterday, and then it just, like has been the case, going sideways, not a lot of follow through yet. What happens now? And so going into today, there was a couple of things I was watching here. One, we had a reversal, this big reversal. You can call that a shooting star if you're following the candlestick methodology, but that's a bearish pin bar here where we broke out above 6,800 and we pulled right back in on some high volume. And this is, varies by exchange, but it's pretty high across the board, well above average on most exchanges. And that was kind of a little bit of reversal. So now you start getting a little defensive, thinking, okay, we've seen this before, right? We have Bitcoin kind of tries to break out and then pulls back in and then just dumps, and the Bartman shows up. So I was kind of watching this, 6680 or so as kind of the defensive posture here. We had the quick sell-off just a little bit ago, and here we are trying to bounce still below the moving average. This is the 1-hour chart. On the positive, you look at that, and there's certainly a battle happening here, right? You see this reversal bar, and now you're seeing a potential support bar forming just after that. But keep in mind, this current bar that we're watching here that's bouncing right off of the 10 EMA, look at that, almost to the penny. right off the 10 EMA, it's starting to reverse. Now, if this turns into green, that's going to be a very strong reversal bar. But keep in mind, this 4-hour bar is relatively young. It's got 2 hours and 50 minutes left in it, so that's still a lot of time. And so how this finishes out will mean a lot. But I am looking at a couple of resistance levels on the upside. First resistance, which is not too far away, is just below 6,900, and that's going to be lining up with this most recent horizontal price support or resistance there. But on the daily, the 10 EMA has been the line to be watching here. And you can see yesterday's rally took it right to that, above it briefly, could not close above it. The good news is it was a pretty big bullish reversal bar on bigger volume than it had been the prior 3 days. So that's positive. The negative is it was just a bounce into a 10 EMA resistance line. And so that you have to be cautious of. So it's a little bit of a mixed market right now, right? The alts were very strong, and I'll go through some of those right now. But this was kind of a mixed market on the daily. On the daily, it's still negative. Absolutely. The broader downtrend is still in play. And right now, you got to treat this as just a bounce into a key moving average. On the 1 hour and the 4 hour, absolutely has been a tradable rally. So a lot of it just depends on your strategy, your perspective. If you're looking at, hey, this is a good long-term entry, the bottom is in on the long-term chart, I mean, there's no way you can say that yet because we have not confirmed. If you're trading 4-hour charts, 1-hour charts, or shorter, absolutely you can go in on that and take some of these rallies, right? So it just depends on your strategy and the methodology that you're using. But we're in a little bit of a mixed market, absolutely not confirmation. So what I want to see today is follow through on yesterday's move and this daily bar closing above the 6,800 level. And ideally, we got to test this 6,900 level. If we can do that, that'd be positive. Above that, the next level that I'm watching, and I posted a little tweet about this yesterday, is this $7,000 to $7,100 range. And that's going to be a big resistance level because there's a confluence of levels to be watching there. One, it's going to be this pivot low here that we saw at the end of May. And look at that, just lines up almost perfectly with this downward trend line that has been the case. And so if we continue higher, that's where I'm going to be thinking that this rally pauses and then we see a pullback. And at that point, that's the test. Do we make a higher low? Do we break higher? Or was that it? Bounce into resistance? We're making new lows, right? That's going to be the question. So if this continues higher today, that's going to be the level to be watching on the upside. And that's going to be a key level, 7K up to around 7,100K, that little zone there. And that also lines up with some key Fibonacci bounce levels on the way up. And so there's just a confluence of indicators showing up there. On the Ichimoku side, for those of you that watch that, there is a cloud resistance line lining up close to that as well. So a couple of things to keep an eye on, but just remember what I always say, the trend is your friend until it ends. And right now the trend is bearish. And so if you're playing the short side, then you're looking for bounces into resistance and you're going short there. If you're playing the long side, the only play here to do is a counter trend rally. And those are short-lived. You got to take the profits when you can get them. And until that changes, that's really the strategy, other than don't do anything and just wait it out, right? From a trading perspective. And so that's what I'm watching here, the near term. That's the deep dive on Bitcoin. Again, looking at the near term, we had this attempt to sell off. It's bouncing pretty good. It'll be interesting to see how this ends going into the end of the stream here. You guys know about my RSI strategy. We bounced right into that 60 zone again, and needs to get above. If it can break into the 70, that'd be positive. But right now, 60 seems to be the wall when we're in a bearish mode. And so that's what I'm watching here, but kind of a neutral market. So some other positions that I have open and we're trading earlier. I did take profit on my Tron trade, jumped on this yesterday here and held it overnight. It was a swing trade. And this was a nice trade. I had a target of 730 on this on the BTC side. And so it hit my alerts, jumped in after the retracement on the breakout here. So let me kind of show you guys what I was watching here. We had this nice move yesterday. The rest of the market was moving. This thing pulled right back. So I got in here on the low of that once it started to reverse. And then it didn't really do a whole lot over the day. But I thought, hey, I'm going to let this thing ride for a little bit. It's kind of pulling in. Bitcoin was still holding up. ETH was looking strong. And then overnight, we had a pretty big pop. Hit my target at 730. I was watching this thing go. We started to see the big volume come in here around 750. So I took profit there at 752. Right now, it's pulling in. We'll see how that holds up. It could provide a nice secondary entry. But for now, I'm going to take it. If I can get a trade that quick on a hourlies, then I say go for it. And so the way I did that one here, let me show you guys here. That was strictly a bounce trade into resistance and a fib level, and that's all it was. And so you can see I had my 730 here based on some resistance down here, and you can see this fib level touched almost perfectly there. I was also looking at a swing here from a lower perspective here, and so there was a couple of levels I was watching, but at the end of the day, it was a little extended in the short run versus even the moving averages. And when I saw the big volume reversal, I thought time to sell into some of that. So Tron on the daily basis, it's I think that's just all it was, is a bounce, because we had a big double top on Tron. And until I can take that out, let me fatten up the line here for you guys. Until I can take that out, that's all I was looking for, was a bounce. You can see this double top that formed. We broke support. Now we bounced, and look at where the rally ended today so far, was like almost exactly to the neckline. But it is turning the corner, and it's above average. So the current daily bar is actually looking strong. I'm thinking it just needs to pause here for a little bit. Looking at Ethereum. And I will do Ethereum BTC first, and then I'll go Ethereum dollar. So Ethereum BTC, look at this support level or resistance level here that it's trying to break above. And so this is going to be interesting to see how this reacts to Bitcoin, because I use Ethereum as a little bit of a bellwether for the broader altcoin market. And if this starts outperforming Bitcoin, then I'm going to be looking for more alt trades, because this will be a good early indicator that, hey, maybe the alts are going to stage a little bit of a counter trend rally versus Bitcoin. But for now, they're kind of just moving in sync. But you can see this one starting to test here a little bit. In the short run, it has outperformed slightly. We had the big pop last week on some of that positive SEC news, set tight. And then yesterday, another pretty decent move, or earlier today, another decent move higher. And so that's going to be what I'm going to be watching here. Now, versus the dollar here, I did initiate a trade on this over the weekend to hit my target earlier today. My target was 545, and we hit a high today of 548. And so I have not completely exited, but I took half off because this was a larger position than I normally take, only because I was using Ethereum as my BTC proxy here, just because I thought it would outperform. And so when I saw this lined up with the reversal we saw in Bitcoin. So I scaled out of the position there, but I'm not 100% out. Going to give this one a little bit more time to see if it can hold up and then ride the next wave up. If it has another leg above this level, the next leg I'm watching is between 557 and around 575. So in that little zone, if it can go higher, I will likely clear out the rest of my position there and get out of the way. But at the end of the day, it's based on price action, right? We can set targets. Oops, sorry, my line's going crazy here. What happened? There we go. You can set price action. You can do price targets and all that. What is going on with this thing? Oh, that's funny. But at the end of the day, it's going to all just come down to what the price action is. Okay, I did something with my mouse here, and it's not letting me delete that line. Oh, gotta love it. Come on. All right. Let me, that's funny. Let me do something here real quick. Now I'm all mixed up here. Where was I? What were we talking about? Were we talking about crypto again? I think we were. All right. So let me reload. You guys don't want to see all this mess here. Okay, I think we're good. That's what I was doing. All right, we're good. So that's really it at the end of the day. But for now, taking the bigger picture charts and just keeping an eye on those, watching this next level up. The daily on this one is much stronger, or not much. Let me take that back. Slightly stronger than Bitcoin. You can see we had the rally yesterday into the 10 EMA. Also paused there, but today it's showing some good follow through. That's 4 green days in a row. Volume has been relatively strong, so I'm favoring Ethereum over Bitcoin right now. So that's kind of the main one I've been trading. I was going to say the main one I've been clicking on. I was reading your comment, Jake. Oh, that's funny. Okay, let's keep going. I'm distracting myself here. Some of the other big names here. Let's do Bcash. And I'll just be upfront here. Once we go through most of these names, there's very few like really good looking charts or setups, to be honest. I've cherry picked a few, and I did some trades yesterday. Ontology. I'm on Neo. Did Ethereum, Tron. That's really it. Binance is holding up. It's looking a little double toppy here. We'll look at that. But most of the other names, there's very few names out there right now that are, I would say, looking like nice charts or setups here. So just keep that in mind. Bitcoin Cash. And so this is versus BTC. You can see it's trying to have a little bit of an outperformance here on the last couple of days. Nice little bull flag we showed yesterday. Some follow through, but also this big reversal bar here at the top on above average volume. This was coinciding with the action we saw in Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin staged that, and so many of the names did that, but it's holding the moving average right now. So you got to give it the benefit of the doubts. Looking at it from a USD perspective, BCH USD on, let me do Bitfinex here. Wrong one. A little bit stiff. You can see this one's holding up pretty good here and trying to move out of range here, holding that moving average on the downside here, but hasn't quite broken out yet, right? So this is I wouldn't say significant level of resistance to watch, but it's definitely a key intermediate level in the near term, just because this is a little bit of a reversal pattern showing up here on this 4 hour, and it's bumping right up against the wall here in the low $900 range. You can see it tried earlier, edging out, got rejected here, but it's still holding the 10 EMA, and so definitely a potential breakout candidate off of this little bit of a early resistance zone. Above that, you know, the mid 900 level, 960 or so is going to be the next level to watch, and I really think that'll be a place of where it gets kicked back, just because that's a pretty significant resistance level on the next level up here. Let's see how this lines up with any key fibs on this most recent pullback here. Yeah, you know, it's kind of a no man's land right there. The 382 is at 945, so maybe that's the level to be watching here near term. And again, this is all just assuming we see some more upside, and you can't necessarily bet on that just yet because the market has not confirmed any kind of reversal yet. So keep that in mind as we go through some of these charts. Ripple, BTC, this is on Binance here. You can see it's a little choppy. Let me get another exchange. Maybe we can get some more. Where did it go? Here we go. This is on Bitfinex here, and it was showing some pretty good action yesterday, but just not a whole lot yet to the upside here. You can see on the 1 hour, it's been a little choppy all over the place. It's tried, but then it just gave all of that up in one bar, and so far just not really following through. You can see it bounced right into this resistance zone here around that 82,000 Satoshi level. How's that look on the dollar side? Man, I love those wicks. Look at that. Wham! Down to 51 cents. Yeah, that's still a little choppy. Still holding the moving average, though, but just very choppy. Definitely not one of the outperformers, per se. Let's do Litecoin. Looking at Litecoin on Binance. Look at that wick. I don't know if you guys can see that on the video there. It might be a little thin, but $119 or $120 wick on the high on that. Hope that wasn't you buying $120 market order, but just crazy action there. But still, you ignore that. I mean, you can see definitely not as strong as, say, Ethereum versus Bitcoin and even versus USD. Still very much in a tight, narrow range. Looking at this on the dollar, hasn't even been able to get close to the 10 EMA yet, just bouncing. So has definitely been the weaker one. And right now I'm watching the same broader downtrend line. So if it does continue higher, then that's going to be the level I'm watching. And so today, tomorrow, that would be around 105. Not that much more from here. So it's going to face a lot of overhead resistance. All right, let me go to my list here. What were the other names here that I had? One sec here. I think it was Neo, Binance next. Let me see here. So I've done BTC, ETH, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ripple, EOS. Let's do EOS and then NEO. So EOS on Bitfinex here. I'm still watching the same relative levels. Not a lot has changed. It is forming a pretty tight little pattern here on the daily, but it's the 10 EMA is like now just overhead, right at $11. And so that's what I'm watching here. It needs to break above that. An intermediate breakout point will be around 11.29, and then you got some wide space kind of above that. But right now it's still consolidating, looking a little double top-ish on the 1 hour. And the RSI absolutely confirms that here. When you do the RSI here, you can see this most recent pop higher. RSI was losing some steam. And so if it breaks below, on a closing basis at least, 1045 on Bitfinex, that's going to confirm this little bit of a double top, and most likely that'll see a retest of the low $10 range. So something to keep an eye on near term. So it's kind of just neutral, not a whole lot. The 4 hour chart looks a lot better, still getting pretty tight there. And so it'll be interesting to see which way this can break out. And these ones, they can move them quick. So, I mean, this is a relatively narrow range, right? You're talking 1080 on a closing basis, 1020 on the downside. So it's sitting tight here. NEO. Looking at NEO, this was one I covered on my last video. I did get filled on NEO here over the weekend. It was a little bit early to the trade, but I held it just because I was looking at some other levels. Risk-reward ratios was favorable. RSI divergence was showing up. So I'm still holding this trade. It's in the profit, but not by a huge margin. I got in on this little breakout here, so you're talking maybe up 3% earlier. It was up a little bit more than that, but we had that quick reversal off the highs. So we'll see how this one plays out. But right now, it's just kind of sitting tight, really just following Bitcoin's lead. Look at how similar this chart action looks, right? You had the big pop yesterday, sat tight, the big reversal today. And so this will follow Bitcoin's lead. But I'm watching the 4 hour chart as it starts to march higher and move along this moving average. And so really right now, that's going to be the level I'm watching, this $39 range. If it starts to close below that, that's going to likely be a failed breakout in the end of this little move. On the upside, resistance here absolutely has been around that $40 mark. So that's going to be the level to be watching on NEO. But man, isn't this crazy? We're talking about $40 NEO. I mean, this takes me back to like middle of 2017. Back in the day, way back in the day. Crypto, man, 2017 just feels like so long ago, doesn't it? Doesn't even feel like it's that close anymore. The market has changed so much. All right, let's see what else we got here. We have, where'd my screen go? Sorry, guys. I was trying to pull up your comments. Where did my list go? I apologize, guys. Hold on. BNB, thank you. And then Ontology and Tron, which we covered Tron at the beginning, so I'll just skip Tron. Okay, so looking at Binance Coin now, Binance has been the port in the storm during a lot of this most recent pullback. Look at the 4 hour chart here for the last couple of weeks, just strong, still holding the uptrend, but I'm thinking that maybe that run is coming to an end potentially on Binance. And best case, I'd like to see some consolidation here near the highs. If you look on the daily, you know, this was a breakout. And so you still have to give it the benefit of the doubt versus BTC. This is new high territory. So there's very little overhead resistance because versus Bitcoin, not a lot of holders on Binance here. It's still marching along. It's still above the 10 EMA on the daily chart. So from that perspective, yes, absolutely. Still in an uptrend, still strong. Nothing really signifying on the daily chart that it's done. Now going to the hourlies, you know, we had this little bit of a double top type of action here. You can see we had a run here yesterday with a higher high, but the RSI was starting to show some weakness. And so that was the first kind of early indicator that, hey, this was a level to be watching right around that 25K Satoshi. We've since broken below that, and it's starting to march lower. So in the short run, the hourlies, they are starting to pull in a little bit, but now here's the test, right? We're kind of coming up to that trend line on the, which historically, at least in the recent history, has been that support. So that's going to be the key level to be watching versus USD. you can see it's similar action here. Let me clear this here for you guys. It's starting to hit this little bit of a triple top on the dollar price here, right around that same mark, 17.10, 17.20, right? So basically the low 17 range, and now we're starting to roll over. And so really the line in the sand right now is basically current prices. So 16.15, $16 tops. And you can see the RSI has just really cooled off during that little consolidation pullback, whatever you want to call it. Looking at the 4 hour, it's also breaking the 10 EMA on the 4 hour. So it's starting to roll over a little bit here. And RSI is also confirming. So that's why I'm thinking it's probably at least due for a consolidation. I think the run has come to an end. The daily chart has not confirmed that. So until that happens, you got to give it the benefit of the doubt. So what I'm thinking is, best case, what I would like to see, which you never get what you want, and market decides. But see, there's this double top right now. But keep in mind, this could also turn into a continuation pattern following the broader run we've had. So in the best case, you'd see like a little pullback and then some sort of bounce and continuation that would set up a base here at these levels and then a breakout higher. So for now, I am sitting neutral on this one. I don't have any open position on Binance Coin, but you know, kind of could go either way here. Ideally, I'd like to just see a little pause here. All right, Ontology. Ontology is another one I'm liking from the daily perspective. Also relatively close to the new high ground here. You can see this was the prior high before we had the pullback earlier this month. And so it's not that far away. It's had a pullback here, but it held the lows here from earlier in May. And so this is looking like it wants to push higher here. On the 4 hour chart, it's still looking pretty good. In full disclosure, I do have an open position on Ontology. And so I'm watching to see how this one plays out here over the next day or so. This is, again, just for me a swing trade, nothing longer term per se. I've got some targets in mind that I'm watching here, but it did break out above this little bit of a resistance zone yesterday. It was one of the early movers too. It was starting to move first before the rest of the market got going, and then Bitcoin followed through, and then most of the other names. And you can see we had a couple pullbacks, still holding this moving average. And so now I'm testing, watching to see if it can get out of this little resistance level that it's been testing here over the last day or so. But not too bad. Now, the nice thing is Ontology does trade a tether pair on Binance now. So I'm really liking the fact that they've added all of these Binance, these tether pairs, just because when the market's this shaky, unless Bitcoin is trending higher, I generally just focus on the USD pairs, because Bitcoin drops and the rest of the alts tend to sell off. And so if your stop loss is versus BTC, then you got to do two steps, right? You get stopped out into BTC, but if Bitcoin is dropping, you got to get out of Bitcoin too. So it just makes it a little bit tougher to trade. And so that's why I'll tend to stick with these. Like the exception yesterday was Tron, and that one worked out, right? But Ontology is still looking pretty good. On the USD side here, you can see the moving average is holding. So near term, first level of support now is around that 648. And first resistance to be watching is, can we close above this 680 or so? Above that, then I'm looking for $7 here on this, and then we'll go from there. But this is a little bit of a bounce play also that I'm watching here on Ontology. You can see we're kind of hitting this next resistance level. So the lower to mid $7 range is probably going to be the target to be watching near term. It's also right at the 10 EMA on the daily. It's a younger chart, though. They just added it recently. All right, couple more for me here. We'll get going. Let's see. We did Tron, so I will skip Tron. And if you missed it, it was right at the beginning. Let's do VeChain. VeChain. So I'll do VeChain Bitcoin first, because this is the chart I've been watching here recently. The bigger picture just continues to consolidate, but it's actually setting up a potential ascending triangle base here, which is still looking pretty good. And you can see I had this line drawn during the last stream. Someone was asking me about this, and we did dip below the line, but it quickly recovered. So, technically you're supposed to readjust the pattern that way and say that's your new support line there. And so still a potential pattern in play, but early signal may be breaking out above this 54K Satoshi level or so. But for now, there's really nothing here other than maybe some short-term trades, but I'm not doing anything with this one yet. It had a little bit of a rally yesterday along with a lot of the names, but VeChain is one of the better looking charts out there, right? A lot of these other names are just kind of versus Bitcoin. they're looking like, and I'm not going to offend anybody here, so a lot of the names are looking like this, right? They're just blah. And VeChain, not bullish, but not as bad per se. I guess that's the only thing you can say. It's not as bad, but it's holding par with Bitcoin. So from a dollar basis, it's absolutely still weak, but something to be watching. So now there's a line drawn in the sand here, right, with this little double bottom that it's staged, and so that's strong support now. If it breaks below that, that's not a good sign. So definitely the level to be watching on the downside. OMG, this one's on my radar today. OMG. Let me go OMG dollar here. So this is one I'm watching. And again, big picture daily chart, still bearish, nothing bullish yet, but it's sitting right at the line here. A little bit of a flag forming. Could it go either way? Absolutely. But if I go to the 4-hour chart, most of my signals, guys, just so you guys know, I tend to use the 4-hour chart, and I'll trade 1-hour charts or shorter and go that way. But I still watch the daily chart. I mean, the broader trend absolutely carries a lot of weight. So if the daily chart is still very bearish, the question is, should you even be going long on any of these names, right? So, but looking at this on the 4-hour chart, look at how narrow and tight this is getting. There's a very clear resistance point here around that $9.50 mark. And so I'm watching this right now as a potential breakout candidate. You see that pop yesterday. And so far, it's pulling back, and right now it's trying to hold support. So one to be keeping an eye on here in the near term. Again, the daily chart, not a bullish chart per se, but on the Bitcoin side here, it's basically flat, just kind of sitting tight there. And you can see versus BTC, it's trying to find a low here, maybe, but there's no confirmation. And one could argue that, hey, this is maybe a descending triangle right here. So that is absolutely valid. And so the support level to be watching versus Bitcoin on a closing basis are right around that 1345 mark. ICX. So looking at Icon, and I put this on my list because I know it's a popular name and it's a favorite to be watching. Right now, it's still looking pretty rough. There's not a whole lot that I'm liking about ICX. It's not on my watch list or anything in near term in terms of trading. I was doing some analysis here earlier, but looking at this, we had a pretty good attempt off the lows last week, and you can see just fizzled out, not a lot of support. So right now, the only thing I see going here is it is trying to form a little bit of a low here. You can see the lower low, RSI is not dipping lower here, but it's just kind of gone flat and neutral. So this could go either way. The bigger trend is still very much in play. And so until that changes, this one's not quite as strong as some of the other names. It had a good chance last week. It signaled with several very strong bars, and it just has paused since. So not a whole lot to do yet for me on ICX. ZIL. So looking at ZIL, ZIL was a nice trade here in early May, and then towards the end here, but has since pulled back, and you can see it's on the daily. Let me go back to the daily. It's still living below that 10 EMA, and it's starting to get really tight here, really narrow on that chart. So if I go to the 4-hour, you can see here it's trying to find a low. Not confirmed yet, but it's absolutely trying. Like a lot of these names, right, they're starting to kind of just flatten out here and build this little bit of a base. And so that's going to be the level of support to be watching. You can say here on the intermediate, there's another line there. So that 1270 to 1280 is your near-term support zone. Break below that, just not going to look positive for the charts. On the upside, hasn't been a whole lot of follow-through yet, right? Yesterday, a lot of the names were strong off of this, and you can see it's just kind of sitting a little quiet. A little tight here on the chart, but one to keep an eye on. But you can see it's just been rejected from the moving average here so far, so not a lot yet. Decred. So I'm going to go to the daily chart here. Decred still sitting tight. It's not really been able to break out. It had that breakout attempt, came right back in. This is, a pause after this pretty decent run here. From a Bitcoin relative strength perspective, Decred's also one of the stronger looking names. During most of the pullback that most of the alts saw, you saw Decred running higher. Now, this only trades on a handful of exchanges. There are some new ones coming on that they've added, but it's not on Binance yet. So be interesting to see if that one shows up on Binance. It's still trying to break out above this level, and you can see the all-time highs versus Bitcoin are right here. And so even a test to that would be still about 30% higher. And so still on the watch list, but the fact that it hasn't been able to push higher is kind of something to watch here. RSI is drifting lower, but that's normal when it consolidates here. So just on the watch list, on the radar. I'm not doing anything with it yet. So 0x. 0x. Still kind of rolling over here, unfortunately. Living below this moving average. Was one of the stronger names earlier, but I am watching this potential here, which is why it's on the list right now. So you had this low, you had this second low here. RSI is showing some strength, indicating near term, maybe the sellers are done, but you got to wait for a break of this broader trend that's in play. And it's trying, right? It's tried to here a couple times here, but other than that, I may be looking at it potentially a little bit of a counter trend rally. But in the big picture, after that big run it had, I personally think it just needs more time. And I know this is a favorite for Coinbase additions, along with a few other names. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but hey, who knows, right? It's anyone's guess at that point. But after this big run it had, you can see it's just been consolidated, now starting to drift lower. And so how far low does it go from that whole run? If we do a fib analysis on this, the 618's not too much further to the downside. That'll be the first level to be watching. That's around 11.5K. And then if it goes much further than that, 786 around 87.50, that would line up with this little consolidation here. And a lot of these names have given up the entire move and some. I mean, if you look at something like WanChain, WanChain's given up the whole move. Went up, very strong, has pulled back, completely retraced the entire move, right? So it's not out of the realm of possibility, unfortunately. All right, and that was WanChain. That was next on my list. So let me just do a little more deep dive on this guy. And the reason I have this here is because it has given up that whole move. It's all the way right back to the lows. And so now I'm watching this little symmetrical pattern that's forming here at these lows. You can see this low, and it's got a high. Now it's making a little higher low, and a little, it's just starting to get really narrow here in the chart the last couple of days. So I'm keeping an eye on it to see if it can move out of range here. Waves. Let me go to waves here. I'm going to zoom out real quick, show you guys the big picture. Is this a potential double bottom on waves? Maybe. Maybe. Let me hide the, well, actually, I'll do this here. So you had this first low, and then you had this little spike low here. RSI didn't quite get lower. In fact, that's a little slight bullish divergence on the RSI there. So that's positive. The fact that the volume was highest here at the lows is good, but that's clearly a resistance level. So one to be watching here. If it's going to continue with a potential double bottom, then you're going to want to see this thing reverse here in the next day or two and start moving higher above that declining 10 EMA, which is still the resistance level here so far. But it's trying. We'll see if waves can do anything more than that. And I believe that was it. All right. So let me do this here. Let me get something to make some notes on here on the side. All right, folks. Let me see. I've got ELF as a request here. I've got Substratum. Go through the list here, and I'm going to take a swig of water. Dentacoin. So while you guys do that, I'm going to go back to Bitcoin, and I'm going to pull up the longer chart here. And so on the weekly, let me clear my lines here. Something to watch here, guys, on the weekly. Last week, right, we had a break below the support. So on a closing basis, that was clearly a bear break on the weekly. It came on some higher volume than we had seen in the prior several weeks. And so this week, if this is going to turn into a support week, we need to close higher on the week, which means it's got to get to 7,000, maybe 7,100. You guys know I already said on the daily chart, that's probably going to be the wall. But if it continues higher, then I'm watching this 10 EMA on the weekly, which is going to be at that point around 7,300 or so. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that closes. Now, I personally think we are still in a bear mode, right? So I don't think we're going to blow past that 10 EMA and start moving higher. But I'm not necessarily perma-bear and saying we're going to 4,000 or 3,000 and that's it. And so just keep that in mind, guys. I know it's always interesting. So I don't, how do I say this nicely? Because I don't want to offend you guys. I don't watch a lot of other YouTubers from a technical analysis perspective. I do watch a lot of other YouTubers in the crypto space, but not a lot from the TA perspective. But there's a few that I do watch from a contrarian perspective. And it's always interesting for me to see that it almost like within a day, right, videos come out when Bitcoin's about to top and they're like, it's good, it's go time. And then when it's about to bottom, it's like, we're going to drop, like it's about to crash, you know, and it's always interesting to see that. And it's just a reflection sometimes of the overall sentiment of the market. It's like after a downtrend, you know, everybody's like, okay, now we're going to really drop. And so I say that because I was starting to see that show up here in the last couple of days. And so that sentiment was there, which kind of led me to believe that we're probably due for a bounce. But with that said, I don't think the bear market is necessarily over. So don't get me wrong here. Could we go lower? Absolutely. And you guys know where I stand. Personally, I think that 5K, 4,800 in around there will be the floor. If it does continue lower, I'm not in the 3K camp or anything like that. But at the end of the day, we'll have to just wait and see, right? The market's going to dictate and do what the market wants to do. But that's kind of my picture now. I'm also holding to the fact that, hey, we could see a reversal here, but I think it would take a news catalyst or something along those lines, not just pure market forces. So that's where I stand on that front. But for the most part, my primary activity has been trading and taking the swings and doing that for now. So, all right. Let me go through some of the names that you guys want to cover. I did not cover Cardano. I will do Cardano. Let's do ARC and Nano. Zcash. Crypto in the house. By the way, Crypto, yours is one of the channels I do watch. You guys want to cover BitConnect? I don't have to look at the BitConnect chart. Just go look at the Chaincoin chart. Let's do Monero, Pivx, all the privacy coins. You know what? Let's just add Dash while we're at it. Nodecoin. Nodecoin. Don't buy that. Don't ever buy that Nodecoin chill ICO. Let me see here. Digibyte. Yeah, Digibyte was on the list last week. We should check that one out. Cool. All right, let's get through a few of these, and then I'll answer some of the other questions here. Elastos, Knowles. I think that one broke down. We'll take a look at Knowles. Syndicator. All right. Haven't looked at that one in a while. Okay, cool. I've got a few here. Let's go through them as quickly as we can because I know we are approaching our hour here. We are 50 minutes in. More thumbs for Node. Appreciate the support, guys, here. Let's do this. So ELF. Looking at ELF here on Binance versus BTC. You know, it's trying, right? It's like a lot of these names, right? It's had this pullback. Now it's starting to stage this little sideways action, a little bit of a potential low battle being put in place. The bears or the bulls are trying to support this level. So that's a clear level of support to be watching here. Not seeing any real strong signals yet. I mean, like most other charts, I mean, they're not very strong versus BTC here. You had a pretty good attempt here a few days back. Just not a whole lot in the last couple of days. So really the only thing you got to be paying attention to is the support here. If it can start to build a new base around these. On the upside, maybe an early signal is going to be around that 10.7K Satoshi level. If we can get above that, you got a lot of resistance hurdles to clear. And that's the thing with most of these names. Now that they've had just such technical damage done to the charts, any rally attempts are just going to be a series of hurdles on a price points. And so I'd be looking at 11.45 and maybe 11.8 is kind of the next levels higher. But you just got to keep in mind, guys, the trend is not in our favor right now. But a lot of these have reached some what I would think longer term oversold conditions versus Bitcoin. And we've seen this in the past. Like here's Substratum, for example, right? Hit a pretty decent low there over Bitcoin. RSI here, you can see here in recent history, hitting the same levels. And so versus BTC, I think a lot of these names have found or are getting close to finding a low. But the question is always, what does Bitcoin do, right? Does it keep going lower? Does it find a rally point? So Substratum here is looking pretty interesting, getting really tight on this chart here. So I'd be looking at that as kind of an early indicator, and clearly support here around 40.92, on the upside around 42.80. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And then in the near term, 4,200 or so. Look for volume if it does start to break out, but that's going to be interesting. I'll have to make note of the sub. Could make for a decent counter trend rally here. Cardano. So let me look at Cardano dollar first. And where did that go? Cardano Tether. And so on this guy, clearly not as strong as some of the others, right? Look at the daily chart here. And remember, I was talking about this during the last live stream, saying this guy looks like it's rolling over here, and it just really did, and just kind of has gone lower. So now the new support level on a closing basis is right around that 15.50 or so, 15.7. But it's got to break above, and it's not showing any signs of relative strength here versus BTC either, but also going sideways here. So it'll be interesting to see how this kind of plays out here. It's getting pretty narrow. Definitely want to keep an eye on here for the next couple of days, especially if Bitcoin can break out of range here. Now versus Bitcoin, maybe a little bit of a double bottom trying to form here. Let me see how this looks on the daily. To me, it looks like a big descending triangle personally, but this is coming to a head here soon, one way or the other in this week. Let's just call it this week. Is going to break out of range. So support to be watching there versus BTCs is pretty clear. And then, of course, on the upside, I would just go with the moving average there, the 10 EMA on the daily. ARK. Oh, poor ARK. ARK was really setting up here. Let me show you ARK Bittrex. And once it broke below the support line here on the bottom of this symmetrical pattern, this is the weekly chart, mind you, so it's a pretty big pattern that was forming. And this kind of just corresponded with the overall market, but this is versus Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin has dropped, ARK has really started to underperform, and now this moving average is really starting to roll over. And so, in my opinion, that's a bear break. It's kind of done for now. So, until we see a reversal. Nano, how low can you go? Let's see Nano daily here. Sorry, I'm clicking all over the place, guys. I apologize. Nano, once Nano broke that all-time low on Binance here, it's just continued to drift lower, and there's no sign of strength just yet. The one positive I say is like so many of these charts, and I'm becoming the broken record here, but so many of these charts are starting to just kind of narrow out here and really tighten up. And so over the next few days, next week or so, whichever, it's kind of one of those next move wins scenarios, right? I mean, this kind of getting big, so whatever the next big move is will likely drive the direction here for the next few days. Zcash. Zcash dollar here. Looking at Zcash dollar on Bitfinex. It's trying to move a little bit out of resistance here. It's kind of flagging out nicely, holding up after that move yesterday. So 198, 199, you can call it 200 is really the level to be watching here. That's going to also correspond with the 10 EMA. So you can see the 10 EMA is right around that $200 And so many names are right at that point where they're just testing that overhead resistance line. And we'll know soon enough, right? In the next day or two, they're either going to have to follow through and break higher, or that's it. Resistance is going to overpower, and they're going to see another leg down. Monero, same thing. I'm going to just cycle through all the charts and say same thing as last one. You can see here, Monero has had an interesting big support wick here. Does it look that way on the other charts? Let's see here, Monero USD. How does it look on Polo? Yeah, a little bit, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's the same story here, right? We had this pullback. We've just been going sideways for about a week now, and it's just letting the moving averages catch up here, letting the RSI reset a little bit. No bullish confirmation yet, but the setup is there, right? I mean, so many of these names are kind of sitting there where if you get a strong bull break to the upside on volume, that could really start to shift the momentum on a lot of these names. But with that said, the trend is very much in favor of the bears. So the dominant trend is still lower, and you got to go with that and give that the benefit of the doubt. That's the path of least resistance right now. So that's the more likely scenario here. But like I said, it could go either way. Pivx. Pivx was hitting my alerts the other day here. Pivx kind of rolling over to on that daily charts. Not a whole lot. It's actually breaking below last week's lows, so not quite as strong. I think Pivx is going lower. Dash BTC. I was watching this yesterday. It was trying. Had a little bit of a move higher, and it's just now it's breaking below here. I don't know what that line's there for, but this RSI divergence is still in play. But let me move this off the volume. I probably can't see that very well. But you can see here, it's just lower lows, lower highs, not looking strong at all. So many of these privacy names have that look. Digibyte. So I was watching Digibyte here. I think that trade play, that potential is gone now. I was looking for a break above this here, and this is about a week and a half ago. It did stage a little bit of a break, and then the market rolled over, and that's it. Kind of ended that setup. And on that move lower, it did break some support too. So not looking too good here, and the moving average is really starting to catch up. So it's got a little bit of a critical juncture here. It could still recover, but right now it's leaning bearish again. Let's see here. ELA on Bittrex. Yeah, it's kind of just, I mean, it had a little bit of a bounce, that's all, but other than being very oversold, it's not a whole lot to do there. Speaking of oversold, I was looking at Poly. That thing is very oversold. Still going, but look at that here. Let me clear some of this here for you guys. That RSI on the dailies approaching the low 20s as this thing has just fallen off the map here, man. Polycoin. Yeah, XLM. We didn't do lumens. Let me take a look at that one here. Keep going on the list that I was at here. Knowles, I got a couple more. Knowles was setting up. That's gone now, I think. It was setting up here for a few days, a potential big picture cup and handle. Now that this has kind of gone too long without that breakout, that's not really the pattern to be watching, in my opinion, anymore. I think now, once it broke this this support level here that I was talking about, I mean, that's it, right? It broke down. It's bounced right into that resistance now. Personally, I think it's taken a very bearish tone here versus BTC, and so until it can get back above and set up a new, kind of reversal pattern or something, I'm not favoring this one anymore. Now, that being said, the bigger picture, it's held up relatively well versus some of these other names, but just that setup that I was watching is no longer in play. Syndicator, man, Syndicator has really found a new low here. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying it broke a support here that we were watching, and it looked like it was trying to hold, but really saw the smack down here. I don't know what this wick is all about, but for the most part, it's just still drifting lower here, not showing any signs of bullish action yet. But still kind of sitting tight here, but not looking good. Lumens, stellar lumens. All right, let me find lumens on Tether first. Yeah, just a bounce. Look at that yesterday and today, almost to the penny. Bounced right into that 10 EMA on the daily on the dollar side, and just kind of sitting tight. So the level to be watching there is that 24-cent mark on the upside, and near-term support 22. So pretty tight little range, kind of forming a little channel here. See which way it breaks out. So that's going to really be the thing to be watching here on this guy here. Let me see on the 1 hour. You could say that's a case for a double top, but a measured move on this double top just basically takes you to the lower end of this channel. So not exactly the end of the world. Searing Labs. Let me take a look at that one. I haven't looked at that one in a while. Maybe. Did I get the right ticker on Searing Labs? SRN? I think that's the right one. Let's go see. I thought I had all 1,000 names memorized, but I don't. Searing Labs. So yeah, I mean, it's a lower volume name. Let me see how it looks on the Bittrex side. This is a micro cap name too. And personally, just so you guys know where I stand on Searing Labs, I'm not sold on the whole hardware aspect of a lot of these projects. I think it's good and it'd be a nice to have if we can pull it off, but the whole hardware and breaking into that space is just ridiculously competitive, and it's dominated by a handful of power players. So they're going to have more than just, hey, blockchain on your phone to make it a compelling reason for people to switch, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? But yeah, I mean, once this guy broke below support here, it's just not looking very strong now. Near term, it is sitting pretty tight. Definitely hit some oversold conditions, but not a lot of bullish side action yet. Okay, I think we are running close to time here. Thanks for joining, everyone. Let me see what else we got here. We did ontology. I didn't do IOTX. Let's check it out here. Younger chart, not too bad here. Looking pretty good here, coming off the lows here on this 4 hour. Certainly one of the stronger looking charts here in the last day or so. Let me go over here real quick. Not too bad. The only thing here on this hourly is there is a bearish divergence starting to show up here on that RSI as this thing marches higher. Just starts to tell me that maybe the momentum here is starting to wane a little bit. So just be cognizant of that. Pay attention to those signals as they start to show up. Doesn't necessarily mean it's sell signal, but at that point, me personally, when I start seeing that, if I'm on an open trade, I will raise a stop. I will look for some support levels on the 4 hour chart. I mean, it could pull all the way back to 650 and still be just fine. And so the choice is always, do I want to let it go that far back, or do I want to lock in some gains and raise the stops type of thing? So all right, salt. You know, back in the day, I used to own a pinch of this stuff. Oof, that was horrible. That was horrible. Yeah, man, salt's just not really been able to recover. Has it found a low? It's anyone's guess now. It's all-time lows, just continues to drift lower. Once it broke that support, that was kind of it. You see a pretty swift leg down, and you see this pattern show up so much, guys. That's why support and resistance are they're fundamental when it comes to technical analysis, and in fact, a lot of indicators are based on support and resistance levels. But you see it hold here, rally, comes back, breaks below right after that. You can see the rally now fails at prior support, now resistance, and then we started lower. So you just gotta be mindful of those key price levels that used to be defended, and once they give way, things can move quickly lower at that point. Salts, since it's salt season. Oh man, I'm gonna have to learn from you guys. My jokes are bad, but man, just kidding. Oh, that's good. Let me see here. Let's go back to Salt just denied you a 10K loan. Sold. That's it. Selling all the salt. Ooh, that sounds cool. Selling all the salt. All right, let's do a BTC recap here. How we doing since we started the stream here? Going back. Had that sell off, but right now I'm a little bit more cautious now on this guy here in the near term after seeing that and that. And so now the benefit of the doubt is on the bulls. It's got to convince me. It's got to get back above that $6,800 or so and show it with some strength. But I've still got some open trades. I'm still holding a handful of names, but I've taken some profits here today, guys, just on the trading. See, ETH, not too bad. Potential a little bit of a bull flag forming here, so it needs to hold that let's call it 527, 525. Right. Cool. Golem. Let me see Golem. It was moving, man. No love for Golem. Look on BitTrex here. Bigger picture. Yeah, interesting to see that kind of just go sideways and go flat here. The thing with these patterns, right, it's just like, is it an accumulation zone? And is it seller exhaustion, or is it just a pause that breaks lower? And the reality is it could go either way, right? This is fragile. It's a fragile looking chart. Just with this support level, if it breaks, I mean, you got another leg down, and that's going to be a bad break if it does. Okay. Well, we've gone a little bit over an hour, guys. We did a lot of names. Let's take a quick look at the coin market cap. We are still sub $300 billion. And so kind of been in a tight range here, not a lot of change. We had a pretty good move off the lows yesterday. There's been some bigger names than others, some other names that are much stronger. But for the most part, it's just single digits, nothing to get too excited about. But there are some good ones out there. Man, Booby's doing pretty good. A lot of these exchange names have been kind of the best names in the last couple of weeks here, but not a whole lot other than that. And so the HODL game remains tough. The Bears still have the upper hand in the bigger picture, but we are finding a little bit of a potential support zone forming here, but it's on the bullish case now to prove itself. And so you guys know where I stand. I think we can go higher. Personally, I'm leaning that way, but I think it's only going to be a bounce more than anything, and that's going to really be the first level to be watching the near-term trend line. So going into that 7K, 7,100, and then, of course, you know, the bigger picture trend, that's kind of more the weekly view. If things really get going, we could still see a test of that, but at this point, you're talking, you know, the low 8K range if we get another leg higher, but I'm not necessarily expecting that. So you're bullish on Node. I got to go buy me some Node coin. Nucleus Vision. Let me see here. It did hit my radar. It's interesting. I had an interesting conversation with the CFO of Nucleus Vision here when I was at Consensus. They're breaking into India and they're trying to move that. I personally am not bullish on it. It's an interesting business model with kind of the AI and the IoT and, you know, the marketing side of things, but it's got a lot of development to go still here. But right now on the chart, near term, I mean, that's still very much a very, very big downtrend, big resistance level that was broken there. Once that broke, kind of really been drifting. But a lot of these names are just versus BTC are very oversold. So when I start to see that across the board, yes, Bitcoin could continue lower, but I start paying attention to some of the alts, especially the ones that I like, the stronger names, because there's just so many that are very washed out versus Bitcoin. You look at some of those all-time high, pictures and the sites that list our all-time high names, and like there's just so many, even just from a few months ago, right? They're down 60, 70, 80%. It's just crazy, the sell action that has taken place over the last few months. So while everything still looks bearish, you got to start paying attention to some of those names that you like, start researching some of those. If nothing else, right, maybe there's going to be a counter trend rally that, if you're trading, could be setting up for a decent trade. All right. Okay, guys. I appreciate you guys being here today. Always a pleasure to have you. I figured I would just do a midweek stream instead of doing another video. We would do some live chart action. So I think that's going to do it for today, guys. Thanks for being here. And until next time, take care, everyone.